The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
Hello. Good evening and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna, and joining me, we keep telling him to stop re-listening to our shows. He's not going to like what he finds, but does he listen? No, of course not. Mr. Robert Winfree. Yay!
Hey everyone, this is a Damn You Hollywood bonus feature, the kind you used to get on DVD extras. Remember when those were a thing? The good old days.
Hey, I still have physical media, okay? Just because
As
I
you
watch
should.
a lot of movies on streaming I'm sorry. Until the day that they start offering at least director commentary with streaming options,
Yeah.
I will continue to buy physical media.
Especially if you look at something like the Amazon Prime Video Player, which has all kinds of things you can play around with. You could totally have a director's commentary track attached to stuff there, but we are where we are in the wide world of streaming slop, and tonight we're talking about something that will soon be streaming slop. I kid. We're talking about because the bride damaged us. Reached
Maggie
into our
Gyllenhaal, do us a
souls.
favor and go. If you want to write scripts, then hire someone to direct, or if you want to direct, hire someone to write scripts. Don't do both.
You're not good enough. I'm not convinced you're good enough to actually do either, but please don't try to do both anymore. But it damaged us deeply, and to begin the healing process, we decided we need another horror movie, preferably something that doesn't suck. And around the same time, A24, that little engine that could, dropped onto the world this little gem, Undertone.
Hey, better A24 than Blumhouse.
I could go either way on that.
Yes, Undertone, directed by Ian Tuason, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, also written by him. This is his directorial debut, brought to us by Black Fawn Films, Slaterverse Pictures, Spooky Pictures, Dimension Gate, Kino Studios, Feel Everything, and a 20FN in my blazer last winter.
For the record, there's that. There is a long-running gag. There's a long-running gag that we have now here on the network that started with Mark referencing the Family Guy bit where they go see a movie and there's like 18 production companies that all have their little things, and Peter's there going like, come on, just start the movie. And there's the guy who gets stabbed in an alley, production companies, and several other things like that. I have on occasion empathized very much with that frustration. This was one of the movies where that gag was brought back to my mind.
See, I think we started actually that gag when we reviewed Late Night with the Devil, because I remember sitting through all of those ads and some guy behind me actually shouting, will you start the movie? Because that thing had like 8 production companies on it.
There's that one. Mark and I did it with, I think might have been Love Hurts, that had a bunch of them. There's one that Mark and I did, I forget how long ago, that just had so many production companies attached to it at different points. So yeah, there's another one of those where there's a lot attached to this, but you're the one who kind of reached out and said, what do you want to talk about? You know, you're the one who reached out and said, hey, Undertone's a thing. Why don't we talk about it? So what brought this to your attention? And that brought us here to this particular podcast.
Well, what brought me to it was that all of the trailers I had seen were already covered, like shot to shot with glowing reviews from other film critics and authors. This is one of the I tend to pay attention when you hear a lot of people saying it's like you've never seen a movie like this, best horror film of the year, blah blah blah, when it actually gets stuff like that. And I also like to look at some of the smaller films that are getting high praise like that because at least this isn't a critic that's being essentially paid off by the studio to say something worthwhile. A24 has definitely made their mark, but their success is in producing smaller films.
As a general rule.
So I like seeing when it's like when you see a smaller film, a low budget film like Undertone, which was, I'm not kidding, made for $500,000. Again, suck it, Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I mean this as a compliment to the film and as a little bit of a criticism. The low budget is a thing they clearly had to work around. In some cases successfully, in some cases a little bit iffier, but it did not become an obstacle to the film, barring a couple of sequences.
Agreed. So yeah, like I said, this just had the makings of something that you really wanted to talk about. You have glowing reviews from a lot of critics and authors. You have a directorial debut. Let's see, what did Mr. Ian Twesson he started his career directing a number of short films in the 2010s. He was forced to put his career on hold for a time in the early 2020s to care for his parents after they were both diagnosed with cancer. And that is actually kind of where this theme with Undertone comes from. The original concept was a radio play. Mm-hmm. Again, the writing is on the wall there, but I mean that in a very good way.
I think this would have functioned better as one. It's fine as a movie, but adapting something that is purely an audio medium into this, I think, just takes a little bit more of a deft hand than this guy has at this moment in time.
Well, you are not going to be happy when I tell you what his next project is.
Go ahead and tell me.
Getting ready to grab Eddie and go dive into the foxhole.
Look, I already saw the news break earlier today that A24 is trying to remake Bloodsport, which is just a bad idea on every conceivable level.
No argument there. Ian has been hired by Blumhouse to do Paranormal Activity 8. Duck and cover.
I'm beyond being annoyed by that at this point. That is a franchise that we have covered pretty much to death on the network. My first appearance on The Long Road to Ruin was talking about at the time, the trilogy of Paranormal Activity movies.
It just goes on and on and on.
That's actually when that was my first interaction with Sean Comer, was him and I on that podcast. And I joked that the fact that I just quoted Terminator for why the monster was at its scariest in that movie was what made him go, yep, you're going to be my friend and you don't have a choice in the matter. And then Mark and we haven't talked about literally every one of those, but we've talked about almost, I think we didn't do Day of the Dead, but the last two I know we did. One of them we did as a part of a double feature. Mark went to see the Gem and the Holograms movie. I forget which one that was.
I can't imagine which was worse, Day of the Dead or Gem and the Holograms.
It wasn't Day of the Dead. It was a
cut off your left hand or cut off your right hand. Which one do you want to suffer more with?
Yeah, then Mark and I both reviewed the most recent one where they are in Amish country. I wish I was joking.
I honestly stopped paying attention to the Paranormal Activity movies after I saw the reviews of the fifth one.
Look, 1 and 2 are genuinely great. Everything after that, you're taking your
I've
life
heard
in your
argument
hands.
actually about 3 is also genuinely good.
3 has moments. My problem with 3 is structurally that it's a prequel to the other 2. It has some really scary moments, and that's good, but
I also heard, and this is interesting because 4 is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the acting in it and a lot of the character development is really bad, but on the other side, the way they implement the new technology, including like the motion capture effect done by, say, an Xbox, is really impressive. So it's like if you're willing to sit through one, you can get the other. So there is something to be said about that.
So I will be, and to dovetail into this movie, after this, I will be moderately interested to see what this guy can do with the Paranormal Activity, world. Because
Admittedly,
they're all kind of the same movie at this point.
true, but admittedly, the thing that sets the Paranormal Activity movie apart is the development of the atmosphere. That is what always
Yeah.
really did it. And as we've seen with Undertone, if there's one thing this guy understands, it's how to build a good atmosphere.
Yeah, that is maybe the biggest highlight. So as far as Undertone goes, this is going to be a fairly short plot synopsis here.
I was going to say, unless we actually want to recreate the audio tapes they're listening to, you can be Mike, I can be Jessa, and I'll get Eddie to play the screaming baby.
Let's not. We don't need to put Eddie through that.
Fine. Yeah, you're right.
I think he's already on the outs with the SAG anyway.
He's still pissed off that when they were casting for Ein, they weren't interested in a tricolor. He would have been
I
a perfect
appreciate his
Ein.
being annoyed by it, but if there was one thing that show did kind of get right, it was actually Ein.
Yeah, and then the bastards left him when they launched the spaceship in the penultimate episode. You and I both went, "How dare you leave behind the corgi?"
Everything about that show is bad. Anyway.
Well, why don't you go ahead and start with the plot while I dig into some Girl Scout cookies?
What kind?
Thin Mints. I've already finished the Exploramores and the tag-along / peanut butter patties.
So in this particular movie, we follow Evie, Evangeline Babbage, B-A-B-I-C. She is caring for her mother at the end of her mother's life. She's very near it. She's just kind of bedridden, not really eating or drinking. It's never
hospice.
It's end of life care at home. It's never said explicitly what she has that's killing her, but there's any number of things it could be realistically. And she is there, and she hosts a fairly successful podcast with a friend of hers who's currently living in London. And part of our framing device here is a lot of what we're doing is them recording their next episode over a few days. So they do a horror-themed podcast where they look at creepy stuff from the internet, and she's the skeptical character. Her friend is the slightly more believing one, and that's kind of they then
so it's
receive
me and you.
A little bit. They receive an email from somebody that just says, "Hey, don't listen to all 10 audio clips of this." And because they're stupid, they listen to all 10 eventually.
Well, it's a combination stupid / we wouldn't have a movie.
Indeed. So they go through the first 3, and weird stuff starts happening to Evie. She's struggling with, how she feels about her relationship with her dying mother, trying to have a life in the wake of that. She discovers she's pregnant, which is a complicating factor for her. And again, weird stuff is happening. She's not sleeping very well. They discover in the second recording episode, where they finish the first episode, and they're going to do they have their first episode that's a 2-parter on this thing. They finish that up and then say we're going to record the next one at this point. And during the course of their second one, they discover that a lot of what's going on here is being given credit to a specific demon who is the patron saint of postpartum depression, basically.
Abazu, in the myth and folklore of Near East and Europe, Abazu is the name of a female demon blamed for miscarriages and infant mortality, and was said to be motivated by envy as she herself was infertile. In Coptic Egypt,
Coptic,
Coptic, again, word I don't get to read very often. She's identified with Alabasandria, and in Byzantine culture with Gailu. In various texts surviving from the oh no, screw that! I'm not reading any more of those.
No, keep. If I bully Mark into mispronouncing words like that, I'm going to do the same to you. So go ahead.
Various texts surviving from the syncretic magical practice of antiquity and the early Middle Ages. She is said to have many or virtually innumerable names. Pictured on amulets with fish or serpent-like attributes. Her fullest literary depiction is from the Compendium of Demonology known as the Testament of Solomon, which
So
I've actually
that's
done a little
the
reading on.
so that's the character that's the supernatural entity we're ascribing all the weirdness to, if you decide to ascribe weirdness to it. And of course that ends up being true, but at some point near the end, her mother does pass away, but she's not present for it, Evie. So it seems like then the demonic entity takes possession of the corpse, and they have a final bit of recording where they are taking live callers, and one of them turns out to be like the demon itself calling in, because by listening to the 10th audio clip, they have invited the demon into their lives and presence, and then we see a bunch of creepy imagery. It's heavily implied that the demon kills Evie, and then the podcast ends and we get music playing over the credits. So there's definitely a lot of good going on here, especially production wise, in terms of like plot writing, there's nothing new or great here, but there's some really good stuff that goes into this movie. The sound design in particular is the big one that everyone has appropriately been talking about.
So, one of the interesting things about this film is that it actually only has 2 on-screen actors, and that is the actress playing Evie and the actress playing her mother. We have a couple of other characters. We have her co-host. We have a few calls from her boyfriend, who we can pick up. He's trying to get back to. I guess they're kind of taking a break. He's trying to get back together with her. She doesn't know if this is really what she wants. Probably not going to tell him she's pregnant.
There's
We get
briefly the hospice nurse or some medical person who is there in the beginning. Again, never seen on screen, but we hear her talking with this. Again, I assume hospice nurse at this point.
Mm-hmm. Got that. Got a couple of callers. We got obviously the 2 people who are just were listening to the tracks of them talking. So this one was very experimental in that it is incredibly immersive based on sound. You don't actually get any real scary imagery for a
Very
while.
little.
You get very unsettling imagery. We get a lot of slow pans across as you try to
And
figure out, what's going on. You have moments where you think you see something in the back, or if you pay attention, you see a movement, you go, oh God, something's there. Kind of remind me a lot of when we discussed Leigh Whannell's The Invisible Man, and how he would purposely hold on shots because he was trying to make you think, is there someone in the room with you? So very similar concept.
Yeah, there's a few other places where they do some, again, interesting stuff with their budgetary constraints. There's some lights that start flickering at certain points, and you always get some fun after images. There's a few too many Dutch angles because I guess a little bit, not enough restraint was applied.
It's trying to be disorienting, and it does work when the camera actually goes from Dutch angle and actually keeps rotating. You have that shot. The final shot is all done in one continuous take. As Evie goes up the stairs, she sees the crayon drawings all over the wall of Abazu, and she stops at the top and looks into her mother's door, and the door is just spinning, and it is so well done.
Yeah, there's times when it really works, and then there's times when we've ended a night, and when we wake up, we just start there and we kind of hold there a little bit too long, and then on a random cut, we're back to normal. But yeah, the sound is the really big. It's the star. The sound design in this is the star of this movie in a lot of ways. What they do with what you can hear before she puts on her headphones to record versus what you hear after. There's a lot of you hearing weird stuff going on back there while she's recording, because the headphones are on and you're never quite sure if it's happening exterior to the sound that she's hearing when they're listening to one of the audio clips, and you can just hear stuff banging around. Is that something in the house, or is that something in the audio clip? And it's very, very unclear, and it really does serve to build a real nice atmosphere for everything that's going on.
One of the things I also appreciate is that when Evie is doing her sessions, it is, I nice little touch that clearly she has noise canceling headphones because she puts them on and everything just goes dead. And you really immerse yourself in those audio clips that she's listening to. You have several cases of Justin, that's her partner, saying, "Oh my God, did you hear that?" And he plays it over and over again. And you are listening to it. And there's no background noise or sound effects or anything else that's going to distract you. You are sitting there going, what? What did he hear? What did he hear? And you're listening very intently for it as well. I will say this, if you do plan on seeing this movie in theaters, which I recommend, make sure that you see it with I actually recommend seeing this in a matinee or in a crazy late showing, because you want to make sure that there are not that many people in the theater. This is very similar to when Quiet Place came out, and theater goers started complaining because you had people in the theater. Well, first of all, everyone's going to kind of giggle, talk, make little side comments, but you also had people munching popcorn and eating candy and slurping drinks. And much like this, that movie is reliant on the atmosphere. So when you have all those things taking you out of it, and it's very bothersome. You want to see this movie with as little distraction as possible so you can completely listen and immerse yourself in what is going on. I mean, I know you, Robert, you prefer to see movies alone just because you hate other humans, but you get my point.
Usually. Oh, yeah, the theater I saw this in had I think 6 other people in it, all spread out, so...
Same.
That was perfectly fine. So the big thing, again, the sound design and the general atmosphere of dread and discomfort this movie is able to foster are its really big hallmarks. It's only got a couple of jump scares, which I appreciate. One of them I thought worked well. One of them not so much. The one that turns out to be her mother in the dream, I thought I kind of almost rolled my eyes at that one.
That was a little weird.
I'm kind of an old head at this point with some of those things, so but there was another one, and I can't remember which one it was. But the other major jump scare I actually thought worked fairly well. This movie, again, on the positive side, one of the things it does a lot of, because again, this is a budgetary constraint thing, it makes you do a lot of looking at what's in the background that's out of focus. Because of the shot composition, you can see our hero, our protagonist, is would be focused here would be her head, and there's all this negative space back here where there's something. Maybe nothing's going on, but there's something there that you're worried about something coming out of here, because all she's doing is talking in this space in the foreground. And, there's a big empty hallway or a big open doorway right back there. And he's like, boy, something's going to come out of there. And it doesn't always, but sometimes it does. The best use of that is there's a sequence near the end where she's fiddling in a closet. And her mother, who is, again, in bed and very near the end of her life, kind of half sits up and just slowly, in time with some sound that's going on, starts turning her head for it to look from this side to where her daughter is over here. And it's probably the most unsettling thing this movie does, is that one sequence.
It does a really good job of putting you in the same state of uncomfortableness that Evie has.
Yeah.
She keeps, so again, since her mother is bedridden, but we keep seeing things happening. And of course, Evie doesn't understand what's going on. So in her mind, the only excuse is that her mother has gotten up and moved and done something. For example, she hears the water running one night. And it's like, well, they're the only two in the house, and she didn't do it. There is a kind of creepy Virgin Mary statue that
Yeah,
is found
that's
moving
not a
around a little
Virgin
bit.
Mary statue.
Oh, that's not freaking Wikipedia said it's a Virgin Mary. Oh,
It's
okay,
well,
what is
hang
that?
on. They actually do kind of reference this. It's meant to look a little bit like one, but I always took that as they explain it as in, I think it's one of the callers near the end who says that someone he knew who got screwed up by the demon made ceramic figurines of Abazu and handed them out to people around, and it's implied that he lives in the same general vicinity as where Evie is at the moment. So I kind of took that as it's a somewhat cursed statue. That kind of so that's, I think that's meant more to be a little bit like a cruel twisting of a Virgin Mary statue to be more like to be more of an Abazu representation.
Possibly. Like a lot of really good horror films, what this movie excels at is what you don't see. It is your imagination that's playing tricks on you most of the time. But again, they really do build up. I love some of the callers that call in. At one point, Evie is talking to her mother, talking about how she's pregnant, and she says if she had a child, she would want to name her Mary. And one of the callers later comes in and calls in and goes, "Can I talk to Mary? Can I
Yeah.
talk to Mary? Can I talk to Mary?" And of course, Justin, who doesn't know that Evie's pregnant, is like, "Mary, what the hell are you talking about?" But you see the look on Evie's face of she knows what's going on. So you hear Justin going, who is Mary? What is going on? And calls going, "Can I talk to Mary? Can I talk to Mary?" So again, the buildup with that is really good.
Yeah, there's a lot that's really good about this movie, and I wanted to make sure that I got that out of the way before I start talking about this thing more critically, because while there's a lot, and happy to apply the same sliding scale that I always do for first-time major directors. But we've got another case of a writer-director here, and while this is significantly more competent and more effective than The Bride, there's a few, I think, pitfalls that this runs into as well that need to be hashed out here. So one of the things that kind of one of the negatives here, when we talk about the themes of a horror movie, this one tries to juggle a few too many balls. We have the demonic influence, we have the emotional resonance and relationship between a child and a parent at the end of their life. We have Evie being pregnant, not sure how to feel about that going forward. And you can see where the threads that are supposed to connect all three of these things, but they never really harmonize. So thematically, we wind up going with, well, is this, partially her angst about potentially becoming a mother? Is this guilt over her relationship with her mother? And her relationship, part of the problem there is her relationship with her mother is talked a little bit about, but it's mostly intimated instead of actually fleshed out. And I don't need every specific detail, but if a big part of the emotional connection here is supposed to be what, the complexity of her emotions around this, I need more than what they gave me here. Especially when part of her big speech near the end opens with, "Yeah, I killed my mother." Like, really? That's what we're doing here? Because in no way did you do that.
Yeah, I thought I didn't really understand where she was going with that, is because she talks about how her mother asked her to pray with her. Now, it is abundantly clear that Evie's mother is a traditionalist Catholic. We have a ton of crosses and
Lots of Catholic iconography, other pieces of
yeah.
artwork. There's, in her room where she's, bedridden, is a lot of stuff, including stuff from like Evie's first communion. So very much very traditional Catholic.
And she talks about how, and you get the sense that Evie has left the church, or she's just, not going as often as she used to. Oh, something a lot of us do. I was brought up in the Episcopalian church, and as I got older, I just kind of stopped going. I had other things to do, and I also very much so valued my sleep. So I desperately wanted to rest on Sundays. And you get the feeling that she now that her mother is bedridden, because she asks the hospice nurse, she says, "Can my mother hear me?" And the nurse says, "Well, there's really no way to know. We can't wake her up and ask her.
Yeah.
They can't, put, sensors on the brain and record, or is, she recognizing this kind of a thing? They don't know." And you get the sense that Evie feels that she has let her mother down by straying away from what's important to her, especially since she keeps listening to a voicemail that her mother left, and her mother says, "You don't come to mass very often." Still very loving. It's like, "I miss you, I love you," but you get the impression that she is worried that she has let her mother down, and it's too late for them to make amends.
And I kind of just wish they'd done more with this, and we could have left some of the other thematic stuff alone. Because any good horror movie like this, what you're getting at is not always what's on screen necessarily. I think part of the reason they wanted to avoid too much of locking in on that was it would invite comparisons to other horror movies that deal with the same kind of thing. Taking of Deborah Logan springs to mind as one that is functionally about end of life care for the elderly. In that case, especially dealing more with Alzheimer's and dementia, but very similar. And it just kind of means that as a writer, you wind up throwing a few other narrative strands out there. And in this case, again, I'm fine with it being a demonic entity, but because they settled, it feels like, phrase this properly, it feels like the story that the writer and director wanted to tell was about dealing with, you being caregiver for your parents, right, as they're passing, which is emotionally rich, and you can play with that space in any kind of genre you can play there. But he kind of wanted to do something about Abazu as well, and there's no real connection between Abazu and the story. So in order to kind of concoct, well, what's creepy and what can we do with this? Well, if Evie's pregnant, then that's a little bit of a bridge there. Except, first time pregnancy, wanted or unwanted, is kind of a big deal, and is the kind of thing that, like, your fear around being a parent is a big enough theme to be its own horror movie rather than kind of tacked onto this one. So that never quite bridges. I mean, there's a whole scene where she apologizes to her mom because she wants to go out and have an evening, just like to herself, away from everything that's going on. And if you've never,
her boyfriend says he's throwing a party. He invites her to come.
And if you've never been in that circumstance where, like, boy, I know you're just like bedridden, but I feel like I have to be here anyway. And now, like, how much of my life is being sucked away by this? And now I feel terrible because I feel guilty because I had that thought. Now I feel guilty about having that thought, but I'm still alive, and I do still, want life to be worth living. And that's, again, there's a lot of rich stuff to play with there that, for whatever reason, budgetary or just lack of, I'm not going to say talent, I'm saying, like, lack of experience and sophistication with writing this kind of material. It's just kind of there because it's a thing that is very real. But there's also, instead of trying to drill into some of that, we also get a weird sequence where her, sleep assistance hypnosis app audio is, corrupted by the demonic influence and leads to that's the jump scare that I didn't care for, is the one that comes out of that.
Yeah, that seemed like spooky imagery just for the sake of spooky imagery.
Yeah. So you're just dealing with a writer-director here that clearly has ability, but experience and sophistication really only come with time. And there's a lot here that would benefit from more of that. But if no one else was going to make it, then you bite down, you do the best that you can with what you've got. And I completely understand that.
There is another element, and you kind of tapped on it, and this is another part where the low budget actually adds to a benefit, and that is the setting. This entire movie takes place in this house. She does go out for one night, but we don't go out with her. And I'm guessing she either got drunk, stoned, or decided just to sleep on someone's couch because she doesn't come back till the morning. And Lord knows we've all done that a couple of times in our life. But this is a very old-fashioned house. I'm guessing her mother's not really one for decorating. It's got really old-fashioned wallpaper, the old-fashioned furniture,
Hasn't
even
been
the old-fashioned
updated
lighting.
since the 70s, give or take.
Not in the slightest. It gives you this real sense that Evie is trapped. It becomes almost a prison because we never see her leave. And you get the sense that because of what she is trying to do with her mother, she can't leave. It is a prison of kind of her own making, of circumstance.
There's another thing, and I want to credit the lead actress for this. There's a way you behave when something creepy happens in your own home versus something creepy happens in another home that you happen to be in. And she does the actress does a really good job of never making us feel like Evie views this location as home. She feels very much like, you know, she's here, she's caring for her elderly mother, but you know, she says herself, like, I really am kind of ready for this to be done.
Which you feel guilty about, but any of us who have had to deal with terminally ill family, friends, pets, you don't want them to go, but at one point you sit back and you actually think, when is the other shoe going to drop? You don't want them to go, but you're tired of feeling this dread. It's like, can it just be over?
And not even in a purely, you know, selfish act. Like, you look at the quality of life that someone has and you're like, man, we're not sure why this is taking so long here. What's going on? Because they're not getting better. They're not going to get better. And part of me wanting you to move on is I don't want to see you like this anymore because I know how painful this is. And they get at the end, that starts the whole spiral of, well, boy, I shouldn't think that because how could I possibly want this person? In this case, I'm a parent. How could I want them gone? And then you wind up, again, up here, you wind up spiraling a little bit. And Evie she's never comfortable on screen. And I mean that as a compliment. I mean that as this actress is clearly not camera ready. I mean, this is not a character that's supposed to be comfortable in any way at any point that we see her. And she very, very accurately conveys that kind of just subtle tension and discomfort through much of this. Because look, if I hear hearing the water running and you hear a faucet on upstairs, if I'm in my house and I hear the faucet going upstairs, I don't even have to turn on the lights. I get annoyed. I go upstairs, I turn off the faucet, and I go back down. If I'm in somebody else's house, you move slower. You're like, wait, really? What's going on up? And then you handle the stairs differently. And I appreciate the fact that this movie makes use of and is intelligent enough to acknowledge behavioral shifts in a comfortable environment versus an uncomfortable one. And Evie is in an uncomfortable one. And we're all along for that ride. And the whole movie never lets you forget that everything here is a little bit on edge. Everything here is a little bit like, I'm not sure about this. And that's a big, big credit to the directing and to the acting that goes on there.
You even get to see, there's a part early in the movie when she's connecting with Justin and she talks about, it's like just how rough things are. And Justin asks if she wants to put off recording. It's like, oh, we can record another night. And she says, oh my God, are you kidding me? I need this. And I actually relate to that really well. I've mentioned this to you and Mark in that so many months during the year I don't work conventions and I'm stuck at home. I don't have a lot of friends in this area. Most of my friends live around the country. And when the weather's really bad in the winter, I can't really go out and do a lot of stuff. So it's like she is grasping to this podcast like, "Oh god, this is my escape. This is my way to, get out of my head and get out of this house in a way." So again, that works well with the concept that
Yeah.
this house is a prison. That podcast is her escape. Even just it's a chance to talk to one other person who's on the other side of the globe, but she doesn't care.
It's something to, put on your headphones, literally block out the rest of the environment and just do something you really enjoy. And boy, have we all been there at times.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, just found out my laptop has been unplugged and my battery was nearly dead. It's like, maybe I should fix that before I disappear and Robert wonders what the hell happened.
That would be awkward.
Especially since I've got the admin privileges. Like, it'd probably be like,
really
okay, so now what?
We just be this stream would just go until either you or Mark jumped on to end it.
No, this is what happens when you have dogs running around. One of them's going to bump into the surge protector and accidentally knock a cord loose.
It does happen. So I think I'm gonna throw this as in the criticism pile. This was originally conceived of as a radio play, or an audio drama, whether that's radio, podcast, whatever the format happens to take. And I don't mean this as a giant criticism, but it's very obvious that it was constructed that way because there's between budgetary constraints and a few other limitations. That's really how it plays out. Watching this as a movie, you kind of go, this could be a stage play or this could just be an audio drama. And I don't think that this was adapted well enough from that original conception to fit the visual medium. There's still things that you could have done. It feels like they saved the vast majority of the budget for the finale, which is when they actually, do a lot of the interesting stuff visually. There should have been more of that sprinkled throughout the movie to make better use of the fact that we're not just listening to this. And to the director's credit, he's able to, in several instances, generate real tension out of the quiet. But this movie's only 90 minutes long, and there's a big stretch in the middle that is kind of a drag. In no small part because visually there's not enough going on, and there's not enough use of the medium going from something that is purely auditory to something that is audio visual. So that would be like my other, I think, big criticism. It's a structural one, and I understand adapting those from one medium to the other is not the easiest thing in the world, but it's a criticism that I still think needs to be levied because I still think it's accurate.
I think my only complaint is that because, this is a 90-minute film, but it really does feel longer. And like I said, the legit scary stuff does not happen for a while. The atmosphere really does build, and it is very easy to get sucked into it, but I kind of would have liked some little more legit scares, I think. Again, the scene where you see the mother in the background move up and tilt her head, I gasped so loudly during that. And the final scene where everything is totally messed up in the house was incredible. And it was like, holy crap. She comes around the corner. There's freaking chairs on the ceiling. How are there chairs on the ceiling? And again, all in one take as she goes up the stairs to her mother's room. So good. I would have liked a few more just moments of, holy crap. Doesn't have to be a jump scare, obviously. I know you and I are not a fan of jump scares, but just something that it added to the creepiness factor without having to just listen to the audio. But You know what? I still liked it. I don't
Mhm.
know if this is going to go on my top 10 list. It is. I do really like, especially because of how experimental it is. This is a very different horror film. This is one that I personally have not really seen this kind of style before. I mentioned this to you before we started. Um, I did. I was thinking to myself where I could compare this to, and I mentioned Leonel's Invisible Man, but I also thought a lot about this early 2000s horror film called Session 9, which is
Mhm.
about these it's an asbestos cleanup crew that is cleaning up this old psychiatric hospital, and one of the workers finds an old set of audio tapes from one of the patients and starts listening through them. And as he continues to listen through it, more and more weird things start happening in the facility. And that's a great movie. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And I got a lot of
I'll echo that for anyone out there. If you haven't seen Session 9 and you like horror movies, do yourself a favor.
oh
Watch
yeah.
it, then go watch Ryan Hollinger's video on it because that's really good as well.
This is a very different kind of film. And again, it reminds me a lot of those early 2000s independent horror movies that were just kind of all the rage. That was when I'd like to say that there was a real avenue for shorter scary movies. That was also
Mhm.
when found footage had finally broken out and become the new genre. Thank you, Blair Witch Project. So you had a lot of people doing things like that and a lot of people experimenting, and it feels like a callback to that. So for the sake of being as unique as it is, I give it full stars. Um, but I will also admit that I don't know if this is a movie I really want to see again. And if I do, again, it's got to be with somebody who wants to see it and wants to just turn off all the lights, mute your phones, tell the dogs to shut up. Good luck with that with my dogs, and just let the movie envelop you.
Yeah, on a pass fail, this is an easy pass. There's the lack of budget definitely shows mostly in hindsight and in some of the logistical things they have to do. Um, but it never comes across as low budget means low effort. There's no one here doing bad work. The sound design is very unique, if nothing else. And yeah, I'm not sure I'll see it again, but that's true of a lot of things. Not because that's not a knock against it. The rewatchability of movies over the last like 5 years is shockingly low. That's an industry wide complaint.
I just rewatched The Monkey for like the umpteenth time.
But that stands out because it's so rewatchable.
Yeah.
Like, uh, as a general rule, if I go back to like 2022, how many movies that I watched that year or that came out that year have I rewatched? It's probably none. But that's an industry wide complaint, not one unique to either the horror genre or this movie in particular. I might give this a try when it comes on streaming, just because I'm curious what the sound design does going from the surround sound of a theater to just headphones. But
Hmm.
that would be a personal curiosity. And still still a pretty easy pass. If any of this has made it sound interesting, go check it out. The atmosphere is probably worth experiencing, if nothing else.
And like we said before, we know that this director is going to go work for Bloomhouse and do Paranormal Activity 8, and
God bless.
Godspeed. God, please God, give us a good Paranormal Activity movie.
It's
But
been a while.
I am excited to see what else he brings us.
Uh,
We have seen a lot of movies lately with first time directors, not counting Maggie Gyllenhaal. But I'm thinking like when we saw Warriors or not, no, Weapons. Sorry, I was thinking of
mhm.
another movie. And I like that we're seeing a lot of studios take chances on these more inexperienced directors and seeing what they can give us.
Especially when even some of the more experienced ones occasionally have very weird uh, offerings. Because, look, Osgood Perkins was on a pretty good run, and then the most recent one he did was
That new one with Titania Mansley.
It's not
I didn't
good.
even get to see it. I didn't even see it.
Nothing about the previews is accurate to that movie. It is. For a guy who in short order had given us, long legs into the monkey, pretty definitive step down there on that one, buddy. But, look, the horror genre has kind of been enjoying a really nice renaissance. At least in popular understanding. It's never gone away, but I mean, we just had, Sinners, which is allegedly horror, certainly horror adjacent. Take home some Oscars. Amy Madigan won Best Supporting Actress for a horror performance as a villain. It's, nice to see that starting to get recognized more and more. When I sit, the awards circle still owes Toni Collette a serious apology for largely ignoring her in Hereditary, but
No argument.
that's a whole other thing.
Now, well, they can put it right up there with Demi Moore's award.
Oh, she so should have won that. Agreed. The Oscars last year were a giant clown fiesta. Nothing that should have won pretty much won. I think it's been enough time. We can all acknowledge that, right? Like Adrian Brody was fine, but that probably should have gone to Ray Fiennes. Mikey Madison is fine in her role, but that really should have gone to Demi Moore. And in no way was Honora the best picture of last year.
You're just jealous because I won the Oscar poll 2 years in a row.
I really don't care about that. Like, this is really just about how bad they were last year. This year, I don't think there were any major misses from this most recent one. Like, there's ones I might disagree with, but that's not the same as it being objectively wrong.
Well, I'm just giving you a hard time because I know for the 2024 Oscar or the previous year Oscars, you did a lot of voting to be a contrarian.
I did.
There was a lot of and it's so because you came in last place. Not this and it was just like because you didn't vote for who you thought you'd win. You voted because Mark and I took opposing sides, and you're like, well, I'll just vote for something different.
I did a lot of that, and the only one of those that I actually stood by in theory was Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Gromit
animated. Which, you know what? I was happy that Flo won. Like, there was no wrong choice between those two movies.
Agreed. Absolutely.
All right, with our little bit of Oscar stuff there, we talked about money last week or 2 days ago, not yesterday, 2 days ago.
With the weather changing as crazy as it is, time has just kind of gone out. It was the day I walked to yesterday when I walked to the theater to go see Undertone, it was 20 degrees and snowing, and it was freezing, and I was so cold. It is 65 degrees right now, and I've got the back door open. My dog spent most of the day outside in the backyard, practicing photosynthesis by just soaking up the sun.
You don't want to know what it's like here. We hit 80 today.
We're going to get like 80, 90 this way. I know it's March, and I know it's March in the Midwest, and Mother Nature gets drunk as hell during March in the Midwest. But in the immortal words of Daffy Duck, would it be too much to ask if we could make up our minds?
Yeah, we're starting to hit high temperatures here already. I think we got super cold like Sunday. It was actually pretty chilly here, but it was high 60s yesterday, and it was high 70s today. So we're headed for a bad summer given how dry the winter was here, but
no kidding. We did not.
You guys got dumped on. Like the Northeast,
not enough.
The Midwest.
Not enough. We are looking at a particularly dry summer.
There's that. I mean, from where I live, there was snow on the ground one day, all winter.
Well, you got to remember, I live in the Midwest, in the plains. So when I talk about dry winter or dry summers, I'm worried about the farmland.
Yeah.
And we did not get enough snow to accumulate enough moisture for good crops this year.
A lot of that here. There's still like no snow in the mountains here. Like ski season was like 3 weeks. That's it. Well, the real snow, and I think that enough fake stuff to kind of, make it work. But anyway, we
trying to go down. I hate trying to do fake snow. I've tried doing fake snow skiing, and it always just compacts into ice. And I just go sliding all over the place. I hate it.
Anyway, point being there, we talked about the Oscars and the money on Damn You Hollywood on Monday. So we're going to skip that segment today and just go right into the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right. The tomato meter setting at 74% for all critics, 71% for our top critics, and the audience score, because Mark will kill me if I ever use this term again. Verified audience at 52 degrees, all audience 48. Wait, did I say degrees? I meant percent. We start talking about weather, and all of a sudden I can't get my words right. The AI writes, masterfully using negative space and unsettling audio to build its creeping dread, Undertone erupts as a diabolically immersive oral nightmare.
It's a little bit effusive with its praise, but I don't think it's wrong in theory.
All right. Maddie Lucas from the front row feels too clean, too well produced, too reliant on tired genre trappings to fully give into the cosmic horror it merely hints at.
This isn't cosmic horror. Please go play in traffic.
I'm sorry.
Cosmic horror is a specific subgenre. This is demonic. Those aren't the same thing.
Yeah. H.P. Lovecraft would like a word. Seriously, were you? I'm sorry. It's like, was this not enough found footage style for you? I don't get what you're talking about. Feels too clean, too well produced. We just sat through a movie this last week that was not clean and not well produced, and we hated it.
I do kind of get I sort of get what she's trying to get at there, but it's a bad bit of criticism. And once again, pretending that this was cosmic horror, not even close. Cosmic horror is all about your insignificance. This is demonic horror is kind of the opposite. You are so important that the forces of good and evil are fixated on you. Cosmic horror is you are not a speck to be stepped upon.
Okay, I'm doing this because Mark's not here. Richard Tolson from the Mary Sue.
You got to go up an octave. Come on.
The Mary Sue. How about
that? There you go.
Undertone excels by being the sum of all of its parts. It's scary, but it's also emotional.
Yeah, see, I disagree with the second part of that. The part of my problem with this was I feel the emotion was lacking for the themes it was trying to touch on. The emotional beats don't hit the way they should, and that is just a failure of the writing.
All right, Ethan J. Rosenberg from In Review Online. Some movies should remain playlists languishing on their director's Spotify accounts. Some, like Undertone, just do too little to even justify their conception. You're an asshole.
No, like the conception here is actually quite strong, and there's good here. There's enough legitimate criticism to be levied here that we don't need to go fabricating it.
Chuck Bowen from Style Weekly out of Richmond, Virginia. If you long to have Sinister remade as a filmed podcast, Undertone has you covered. No.
That's I get what he's getting at. That's a little dismissive, but it's kind of clever.
It's called, he sees one demon-themed movie, he automatically goes to another demon-themed movie. I have seen Sinister multiple times.
At least he didn't try to throw an Exorcist reference in there.
Oh, thank God. All right. Andre Herford of Metro Weekly out of Washington, D.C. But all Undertone really adds to the Paranormal Activity formula is taking away the visual element of a horror franchise built around found video.
This is not okay.
Not found. Oh my God! What is wrong with these people?
This is fundamentally not found footage. I can see where you might get confused because the way the audio is presented might almost be found audio, but this is not that. This is not a Paranormal Activity sequel or a clone. It's just a director working within really limited budgetary constraints, and there's very obviously some stuff that owes homage to some of what Paranormal Activity does camera movement wise, but camera movement in found footage is not the same and should not even be remotely considered in the same critical ballpark as deliberate choices by the director, the way this one was. So owing part of what it's doing to that is not the same as it trying to be another Paranormal Activity, because it's not.
Oh, here we go. Jeremy Johns. Undeniably, it's a new experience, a new angle that breathes new life into it. He's not
New
100%
was
wrong
his
there.
word of the day. My slight sarcasm aside, yeah, what as a movie that just is willing to go all in on making you listen and pay attention, I appreciated that.
Alicia Mughal from Exclaim with an exclamation point. On a technical level, Undertone is an exceptionally made film, but it is this exact well-madeness that serves as a sort of sleight of hand that distracts us from the fact that the film itself is emotionally hollow.
Hollow's a bit strong, but shallow, I think, would be a fair criticism.
Okay, let's see. Like Roger Ebert said about hot air balloons, good movies rarely feature a podcast. From Steven Silver from Splice Today.
I forgot that Ebert had said that. In fairness, that line largely came about because of Around the World in 80 Days and the shameless, and I mean shameless, bribery that it took for that thing to win Best Picture that year over the Ten Commandments.
Sean Burns from Splice Person. I'm seeing the word splice show up in a lot of these. Apparently, that's the new nom de plume for reviewers. Indeed, there's something metronomic about Twasson's development or deployment of scary sights and sounds. It all feels as prefab and astroturfed as the movie's marketing campaign. I give you 1 point for using astroturfed as a verb.
But we absolutely take it away from talking about metronomic. You just didn't want to say formulaic again, and it's very clear.
Joseph Robinson from Fish Jelly Films on YouTube. Undertone drifts through uneventful stretches of repetition before a late surge of energy, and its abrasive sound design may alienate some viewers. The sound design is the reason to see this, you Nimrod.
The first half of your criticism, I think, is fair. We talked about it. Like there's a chunk in here that really lacks energy or interest. But no, the sound design is a big part of the selling point here. So don't know what you're going about there, buddy.
Let's see here, looking for any more of our usual guys. Austin Chronicle, Arizona Republic. Jeff Nelson from WeHo Times. Undertone knows the eerie breadcrumbs to lay in the third act chaos it wants to unleash, but it doesn't really know how to drum it into something actually scary.
In fairness, this movie has nice atmosphere. It's not actually all that scary. Which I'm of the opinion that not every horror movie needs to be relentlessly scary, but as mentioned, this could be a little scarier and would have benefited from it.
Mm-hmm. See here, where are all of our usual guys? I can't.
Not reviewing this, probably.
I guess.
No, we're not giving IGN the time of day, even to make fun of them.
Okay, Brian Ornford from Blu-ray.com. Sound is basically all Undertone has, unable to cook up a more dynamic haunting to follow as everything in the movie goes crash, bang, boom.
The crash, bang, boom doesn't happen until later. No. And as previously mentioned, the actress here isn't going to win any awards, but I do think she does solid work for the most part.
And let's finish off with Avi Offer from the NYC Movie Guru. You are not a movie guru. An atmospheric slice of psychological horror with creepy sound design and stylish cinematography, but it's repetitive without enough palpable scares or imagination. In a double feature with Blowout, it would be the inferior B movie.
Okay, that's the first sentence I agreed with. The second one, no, this is better than Blowout.
I don't think I ever saw Blowout, so I'll take your word for it.
Well, you have something to watch tonight then, don't you? And you can curse me
Actually,
later.
Actually, I need to work on orders, but I want to go watch The Ugly Stepsister.
That's a choice.
That is one of the horror movies that everyone raved about from 2025. I never got a chance to see it. It did get a nomination for best makeup. You know, lost fairly to Frankenstein, no question, but
It wasn't even. It was never. It wasn't just. It didn't just lose to Frankenstein. It would have lost to like 3 other things on that list too.
well, let's face it, if Frankenstein didn't win, Sinners would have taken best makeup for the vampire effects.
If not, I think I had Sinners. If I were to like place them, I had Sinners third. For just makeup, let me find that.
Well, makeup and hairstyling, tomato, tomato.
Because I had one more. I had again. I thought Sinners absolutely deserved to be there. Let's see, documentary. Because I'm trying to remember what it was. Sound, production, costume, makeup, and hairstyling. I think I might have had Smashing Machine above Sinners.
Okay.
Mostly because I know what The Rock looks like, and I know that he looked like Mark Kerr in the movie, and I thought they actually did a great job with that. But anyway, I think that's gonna about wrap us up here. Nice, again, little bonus episode, bonus review. Nice to talk about a fun little horror project from time to time. So, Alexis, what do you have to plug?
All right. Well, I'll be back next week with David Wright to discuss One Piece Season 2 Into the Grand Line. Looking forward to talking about it. We had a lot of
show. I mean, considering we opened this episode at least partially ragging on Cowboy Bebop again, the fact that One Piece largely gets it right is a minor miracle.
Yeah. Love the first season. Look forward to binging the second season this weekend. In addition, I think that's actually, do I have
my only gripe with season 2 is the casting of Nico, but
all right, so it looks like I am not back on for Damn You Hollywood for a few weeks. I will be back on April 6th to talk the Super Mario Galaxy movie because there is no way you guys are talking about that without me.
I mean, we could, but we probably won't.
You wouldn't dare. You wouldn't be that mean to me.
Well, I wouldn't, but you know.
Okay, fair enough. And as far as the plugs that pay me, the Honeysuckle Hustle, it's like you started it, Mark. Just remember, you started that.
He made a song about it.
He had ChatGPT make a song about it. It is
He
not
wouldn't
the
have done
same
it without
thing.
him. He did it. Look, my general philosophy on that is if I'm going to say you pulled the trigger to shoot a gun, I'm going to say you're the one who made the AI do it. So Mark did it.
All right. So yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations.
That also means they don't get to hide from from things that are bad by saying, "No, the AI did it." Like, no, you did it, buddy. That was you. Wouldn't have done it on its own.
All right, yeah. Where fashion meets fandom, the intersection of geek and chic. Not this weekend, but next weekend is Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City. Looking forward to it. It's going to be our first big show. It's actually like our only show in the spring for a few months. I am going to be moving locations here before too long, so I have held off on booking conventions because I didn't want it to be a case of, okay, now I need to move all these boxes, but I also need to go get everything done and ready for this convention, because that is a level of hell that I don't think I have, sinned enough to be worthy of.
Even if you have, you try to avoid it.
Pretty much. So we are currently working with a couple of new wholesale clients. For those in Kansas City, we have just inked a deal with the Noctera Bookery. They're starting their retail room, and we are going to be having some of our items there. And if you're a Mizzou student in Columbia, Missouri, go check out Hexagon Alley. That is an awesome board game store. They are revamping their retail, and we are going to be selling wholesale there. And of course, we still have our stuff available in Des Moines at Mayhem Collectibles, and down in Oklahoma City at Game HQ. Working with a few more locations here in Kansas City to get our stuff put back up. Level 1 Game Shop had previously cut all of their freelancers. Looks like they are opening them back up, so we're hoping we can get our stuff back in there. And in the meantime, we do have our online stores. I got our Handmade at Amazon shop up here right now. If you're a big fan of horror, you can see we got a lot of stuff. We got Hazbin Hotel, we've got Clue, we've got Hellraiser, we got Dogs Who Won't Shut Up. Sorry, I think someone's at the door and they're going insane. So if you're a fan of fun, cool, unique accessories, most of which are upcycled from old game pieces, come check us out. Again, we got our store on here on Handmade and Amazon. We also have a shop on Etsy. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky Screw You, Twitter, and TikTok. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. Robert, where can our listeners find you?
Hopefully not on America's Most Wanted. I will be covering.
You are the least likely person on this network to end up on America's Most Wanted, okay? And I know there's a chart.
I appreciate that you think that about me. It means my deception is working. Because look, I may be the least likely to appear on local news. But if any of us is going national, like Mark would just turn into a Florida man headline. If I'm going out, I will get like some moron from the White House will tweet about me. I don't know. I'll do something like that.
Not started a Florida man headline at this point.
Because he works in a prison. He used to work in a prison, so he dealt with the Florida men.
Very true.
You can find me covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. This Saturday will be an earlier show. It starts prelims start at 1 Eastern, if memory serves. I'll double check that. This is the UFC back in London, headlined by Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy, which is a very good fight. If you want a full preview of that, listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. It goes live these days around 2 a.m. Eastern, because that's when I disturb my family the least by going live. On Sunday evening or / Monday morning, 2 a.m. Monday on the East Coast. So all the Australians and the New Zealanders get to watch me live, and that's kind of amusing. I have a review of the card that just happened, which was pretty good, and a preview of the London card. And this upcoming episode, we'll review the London card, and we will preview that Piper Adesanya next week. It is. I remembered. The UFC back in Seattle, Washington, and that card, full preview. Over on the 411 Wrestling and Entertainment YouTube channel. That's the only place you can find it these days, I think. So tune in over there. Have a good time. And I will be back on Damn You Hollywood Monday when Mark and I will be reviewing Ryan Gosling's Talking to a Rock Puppet for 2 hours with Project Hail Mary. I kid. The reviews have been exceptional, and I am very much looking forward to seeing the movie. So my antipathy for Gosling, which is a fluctuating thing, and my general love of puppets should make for an interesting combination. But come back for that.
Also, your tolerance for scripts that are adapted from books from the same guy who wrote The Martian.
That's Andy Weir. That's usually fairly high.
Yeah, Andy Weir is a brilliant author.
Because I enjoyed The Martian.
Who didn't?
Could have done without all the profanity, but seriously, guys, if you've ever seen The Martian, understand how much work they did just to remove the sheer number of times various people at NASA say fuck in that script. Because there's a lot of it in the book.
Yeah. Well, Weir had to agree that it was a PG-13 film. What are you going to do?
I think the script is better than the book, with one major exception. But that's just me. If you want to listen to Mark and I talk about that, it is in the archives. So you can listen to the Damn You Hollywood review of The Martian. And yeah, Monday we will talk about Project Hail Mary, where Ryan Gosling has to team up with a rock creature to save the stars that are dying. Genuinely kind of looking forward to that. So, the state of cinema. That's what I'm looking forward to.
You got that. Week after that, you, Mark, and Jason will be able to talk Ready or Not 2. Which, like I said, sadly, I don't get to be a part of. I'm a little disappointed about that because I love the first Ready or Not. But I will be the week after
the
that.
girl who played Sammy, now playing Samara Weaving's sister, is gonna. If they don't get her to hold a bag of onions,
A bag of onions. Yes. Damn it,
'Cause-
Sammy, those are onions.
That remains like my favorite line read from that entire year of movies, was that guy going, "Sammy, those are ding onions."
I think it's more just the reaction because he's like mid sentence and he just goes like, Sam
He comes in,
just
I
like
got him. Like, that's not garlic.
Dan Stevens is a treasure. He really is.
That was one of the first times I'd really like watched him act, and yeah. So I'll get to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer chase down Agent Smith's daughter. That'll be fun.
You know what? It's good to see Sarah Michelle Gellar getting back into work.
You know what? I'm also glad that Buffy thing got canceled. I saw not in a vacuum, but like because it's been canceled by Hulu, they're talking about what it was going to be like. And it's one of those things where, hey, tune into Buffy Whole New Sunnydale, where Buffy herself only shows up in the last 5 minutes of the last episode, because this is what we do.
I'm just sick of the legacy sequel that thing that Hollywood's been doing so much lately.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just found out that Firefly is getting an animated series sequel to the original series. And on one hand, I'm thrilled because that show was very wrongfully canceled. I am part of the group that says that was total grade A bullshit. But at the same time, we look at how Hollywood just, it feels like they're saying, okay, well, we don't want to do direct sequels, but how can we just reinvent everything because we literally can come up with nothing better? And I'm getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah, you and everybody else. But that is going to basically wrap us up here, everybody. So thank you very much for tuning in, live or after the fact. We appreciate the heck out of you.
All right, everyone listening, for Mr. Robert Winfree, I'm Alexis Hejna. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to go try to figure out what the hell the podcast and this movie did to get that many viewers, because damn it, we really need that.